The biggest lie you've been told about starting on YouTube is that you might need better gear. Well, let me tell you why that's completely backwards. I've just got off a call with a lady who has 25 years of expertise. I mean, she's absolutely brilliant. However, she spent £7,000 building a flawless YouTube studio. I mean, Sony cameras, Shure microphones, teleprompters, the lighting was dialed in. But her upload count, 0. Now, if you're a high achiever, maybe over 40, 50, 60, hell, any age to be fair, where you've built some real expertise and you're still in the getting ready to start phase, you don't have a gear problem. You have an identity gap. And that gap is the only thing that's standing between you and a business that could buy back your time. Now, before we go any further, I want to say just this. The call we're talking about here is a 30-minute discovery call, and it's open to you too. I don't sell ever on these calls. They're a space to think out aloud, to be heard, to see what's really in the way without any pressure, certainly without a pitch and without any performance. And the reason that I'm telling you this now is because as you listen to this video and you kind of walk through it, you will begin to recognize yourself. And if you do, just know that there is a place that you can bring that safely. There'll be a link around the description to book yours. Now, I want to show you why a shield forms and it blocks you, how it quietly hijacks your identity. And I'm going to share that mic drop moment when her flow arrived and turned her voice into a cash machine. So stay with me because the payoff is really simple. We're going to dissolve the shield. We're going to find your authentic cadence and start building a body of work that buys back your time. So before I tell you what the studio really was, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how some forms of preparation feel calming, but somehow never bring you closer to actually starting? Now, imagine this. Walking into the room, you can taste the polish. The soft boxes are dialed in. The Sony cameras and the Sigma lenses whispering bokeh of air. Shure microphones, DJI microphones, teleprompters, perched like a promise. The new flooring, the fresh plaster. A desk that says, I'm a serious creator. The price tag, £7,000. The upload count, like I said, 0. See, this is where the shield hides, in plain sight, disguised as readiness. One more lens, one more light, one more course. This checklist gives you certainty, the camera gives you control, and the purchase gives a dopamine hit that mimics progress. But publishing doesn't reward control. Publishing risks your identity. And that's the real sting here. See, the shield doesn't announce itself as fear. It shows up dressed as responsibility, professionalism, and doing things properly, which is why it's so hard to see until you understand what it's protecting you from. And that's what I call the identity gap. The public expert, but the private beginner. Now, at work, she leads. In front of the lens, she's new. Probably just like you. Being you at 53 feels very different to being you at 23. Trust me. You see, you're used to competence, to being the person who knows. The lens, though, that levels the playing field, doesn't it? And it asks you to be a learner again. And that friction between who you're seen as and who you feel like creates invisible pressure. Pressure that keeps the studio immaculate and the feed empty. Now, how about being your own mirror? See, that's the uncomfortable part. You usually don't recognize the shield in other people until you catch yourself using it. And I know this move because I have played it. I've built my own glass-walled ceiling. I run a social media agency, so I thought I had to look like the agency guys on camera. Sharp, slick, perfect. But for 2 years it helped, and it also crippled me. You see, I made the room the hero and quietly made myself the prisoner inside it. That's why I'm literally shooting in my lounge today. You see, what I didn't realize at the time was this: the more polished the room became, the less permission I gave myself to be human inside it. So here's the truth that most people miss. Yes, good audio matters, but perfectionism doesn't. Viewers forgive imperfect focus because they have in my videos, trust me. They forgive a creak in the floorboard, and they forgive a frame that isn't maybe symmetrical. You might even forgive the dogs whining in the back of this video because they're on the other side. If you remember nothing else, please remember this: you will never forgive the disconnection. Presence outranks polish. You see, when meaning enters the room, there's the dogs. So back to the call. The conversation took a turn that I wasn't expecting. It's the kind that makes you realize this was never about content. On the call, she said something out aloud. Shush, boys. She said, I thought I was getting myself ready to launch, but I was actually protecting myself from ever having to. Let that sit with you for a moment, because that's the shield speaking through a smart person. And then she told me something that absolutely stopped me. In the same studio, in a cupboard inches from that microphone, sits 2 urns of both of her parents. Not visible, but there. Literally a private chapel inside a YouTube studio. Loss and love sharing space with lights and lenses. Suddenly, the studio stopped being a business decision and started making emotional sense. She wanted a room that felt new because life had turned a page. In grief, control can feel like safety. So the studio wasn't just kit, it was meaning. It was an altar to the version of her that was ready, composed, unshakable. But readiness isn't a state that gear grants. Readiness is a feeling created by speaking. The voice manufactures the courage that the room promises. And this is where the real story appears. Once we stop talking about cameras, the real story turns up. 25 years of line by line craft, coaching people to be all that they can be. A heart for humans in their most hardest moments. She told me about the woman who didn't know if her brother in Iraq was alive. Reading content through tears, needing language that didn't make the day worse. That's not content, that's care. That's presence on a page. So we named the trap. The checklist soothes anxiety. Publishing exposes identity. And the identity cap widens every time you buy something to feel safe, instead of saying something to feel real. That's why buying something feels like forward motion, while turning the camera on feels like exposure. One protects who you've been, the other asks you to be seen becoming someone new. Now, let's talk about the belief break. Here's where most advice gets this wrong. It treats the shield like something to fight, when in reality it's something that once kept you safe. Here's the belief break. Shield isn't evil, it's loyal. It kept you safe while you gathered yourself. But safety and silence are kind of cousins, really. When you're ready to be heard, you don't tear the studio down. You change what it's for. Now, the kit becomes a prop, not a prerequisite. The studio stops being a fortress and becomes your stage. This is exactly why I created Courage Before Confidence. It's not a mindset course. It's not as motivation, but it's a way to gently remove the shield so you can practice being seen before you feel ready. Because you can't build a channel to fuel a business if you can't put yourself on camera with safety and self-trust. Now, I've seen this dissolve the same pattern for so many people. Capable, thoughtful humans blocked by self-protection. So, flow. How does that arrive? It doesn't arrive when you're impressive. It arrives when you stop trying to manage how you're perceived. And once we saw that in the call, the conversation shifted. We weren't chasing perfect. We were listening for presence. And presence shows up when you let your heart lead. I call this your heart brand. And when it happened, she stopped trying to prove she was credible and started talking to the person who was hurting. The cadence changed, like someone took literally a foot off her chest, and the room fell away. I wasn't thinking about thumbnails, I was thinking, please keep talking. And that's when I said it. Your voice is a cash machine. Now, she laughed and then went quiet and then said, that might be the greatest sentence I've ever heard. Now, I wasn't being clever. I meant it literally. You see, her voice was steady, warm, precise, and it made me feel. Now, feelings open wallets, not manipulation, resonance. You see, when someone makes you feel seen, you want more time with them. Time turns into sessions, programs, retreats. The sound of a voice is commercial because it carries care. Let me share with you why this works. We buy feelings packaged as outcomes. Confidence becomes before an interview, calm after a diagnosis, clarity in a career fog. So if you can invoke that feeling on camera, your content pre-sells the transformation. Not because you shouted a guarantee, but because the nervous system recognizes home. Trust can't be faked with lighting. It's built by how you attend to someone's reality. Grounding it. Let's look at that. I've posted videos that would make a cinematographer cry. Last week I uploaded a 33-minute video that was literally out of focus. My cup on my desk was sharp, my face was not. But I still posted it, and people still watched it. But why? Why do you think? Let me know in the comments. Because I was present. The frame wasn't perfect, but the feeling was. And feelings win. See, this is where documenting over creating stops being a slogan and becomes a survival tactic. Record what's true today. Serve from where you stand. Growth gear, style, they can evolve while you're moving. Waiting for the proper version is how a year disappears, my friends. You see, once she tasted flow, the kit lost its power. The teleprompter became a guide, not a mask. The mic became a witness, not a standard to live up to. And the studio turned from a fortress into a stage. The difference was nothing to do with the setup. It was intention. Now, she wasn't trying to be a YouTuber. She was trying to help someone breathe easier for 5 minutes. And she recorded that video on Sunday. So if flow is now on tap, where do you point it? At the first person who needs what you needed. Talk to the version of you who built this beautiful prison and tell him or her what the shield promised, what it costs and how to lay it down without smashing the room to pieces. Yeah, keep the altar, use it. Love doesn't need retakes. You see, The takeaway here is simple. It's presence over polish. It's service over performance. Document over create. Put your voice where it can do its job. Money follows the feelings you reliably invoke, and the fastest way to invoke them is to show up unarmored, on purpose for someone specific. See, once you feel that click, you won't ask if you're ready. You'll be too busy speaking. Now, in this video, we talked about the shield, how polish gear and preparation can quietly protect you from ever pressing publish, and how presence always outranks perfection. But here's what most people don't realize. The fastest way to dissolve that shield is not by upgrading your setup. It's by deliberately making what I call ugly videos. And there's a reason most YouTube gurus will never tell you to do this. So watch this video next and I'll show you exactly why ugly videos build confidence faster than polished ones, and how using them strategically can grow your channel, your coverage, and your business at the same time.